This is step-by-step instructions on how to replace your iPhone 7 screen. So the first thing we want to do is we want to power the device off. Next, what we'll do is we'll take a pentalobe screwdriver and remove the two pentalobe screws at the bottom of the iPhone. So now you'll take a heat gun and you will apply heat around the edges of the iPhone. Normally we don't have to do this to an iPhone, but being that this is a 7, it has a waterproof adhesive, a little bit thicker and harder to get through, so you want to apply some heat around the phone and it'll make it easier to get your iSesamo tool or whatever pry tool you're using in and underneath the frame. So once you've wedged your tool in between the bezel and the frame, you'll want to be careful and run it up the side, the left-hand side of the iPhone. The reason being to work this way first is because iPhone 7s open on the side and pop open, unlike all your other iPhones that you pop up from the top. And they have the flex cables are at the top. The iPhone 7 is on the right hand side, and you don't want to damage those cables, so be very careful and work your way from the bottom up the left and up through the top. Just be mindful at this point that as you pop the phone open, there is still some of that waterproof adhesive on the right side of the device. So you may want to do what I do here and just take your tool and run it up the side just a little bit. Don't go too far in. The connection cables are there and you don't want to damage those. Now that we've got the adhesive off this device, it's finally able to be opened, and once you open the phone, the first thing you'll want to do is you'll want to dislodge the battery, and then we'll remove these 4 screws here over this plate holding in the battery and work our way up to get these 2 screws for the proximity sensor. So what you'll want to do now is get a different bit. These are not Phillips head down here. These have a triangular bit, so don't warp these. Don't try and use a Phillips to get these 4 out. It's not going to work. Be very careful here, and then we can work our way up to the rest of the phone. Now when I pull this frame up, for some reason the battery connector actually just stayed with the frame. There's nothing wrong with that. Yours may actually come apart. The next thing you'll want to do, once you get this out of your way, you'll take your plastic spudger or whatever tool you're going to use to dislodge these ribbon cables. There's 2 of them here at the bottom. You want to be very careful and dislodge them, and then we can work our way up. These 2 screws right here, these are Phillips head screwdrivers, so just use your regular Phillips to remove these. Okay, the next thing we want to do is take this metal frame that is protecting the ribbon cable. Go ahead and get it out of our way. As it pops off here, Then we dislodge the ribbon cable. So by now, you should be at this point. Congratulations, you're not even close to being done. So here's the new digitizer screen assembly. It's pretty bare bones at this point. So basically what we're going to have to do is replace the forward-facing camera, the earpiece, the proximity sensor, and obviously the home button. So now it's time to unscrew a ton of screws. These 3 over here are triangular. The 4 down here holding the home button assembly together, they are Phillips. And you have 3 more triangular screws over here on this side. Because of the essence of time, I'm going to fast forward and skip through this. If you need help unscrewing screws, that is in another tutorial in another video on YouTube. I'm sure you'll find it somewhere. There are 5 more screws up here. 1 is attached to the metal frame right here. We'll get that one first. And then the other 4 screws are holding the earpiece, proximity sensor, and front-facing camera in. We will remove those and then work on getting the proximity sensor taken out. Now that we've got those screws unscrewed, we just grab the earpiece. We go ahead and it just pops out. We set it off to the side. Now we work on getting the module here out with the flex cable, the proximity sensor. There's a slight bit of adhesive to the frame, so you want to be careful and slide your tweezers or X-Acto knife or whatever you want to use here to slide under it. And just be very careful not to rip the cable. It should come out without much issue here. And now we're down to the home button. We're not going to actually take the home button off just yet. There's a way I want to show you how to do that, but we will take the 4 screws off, and after we unscrew those, we'll take the metal plate protecting the home button and ribbon cable here and take it off, and then we're going to try and take the frame, the metal frame that you see that's reflecting here, take it off from the home button itself first. You'll want to be very careful here. There's some adhesive on the back of this metal piece, and you have to reuse this piece for your new digitizer screen. So be very careful not to bend the metal, and as you pop it off, you'll be able to put it off to the side. And now back to the home button. What you'll want to do is take your plastic spudger and slide it in between the connector here very carefully, pry up, and that will come loose. Now with our X-Acto knife, we'll slide up underneath of the connector between the frame and the connector and run the knife blade down the side until the home button dislodges, and hopefully it'll fall through there for you. And there's our home button connector. And here we are, the new with the old. we will have to swap out some of these parts here, these plastic pieces for the front facing camera and proximity sensor. We'll just take our tweezers and pry up on them. They should come out. We'll replace it and put it over to our new frame. And now we can grab the piece of metal frame here. Just be mindful of your ribbon cables here. Slide this back in place. Still got some adhesive on the back end of it, so that will help out. Now it's on to the home button. So you'll want to slide it up through the opening here. And as you do that, push it back underneath the connector. Don't forget that you have to wiggle it underneath there. There are a couple of holes in this black ribbon that slide into the frame. If you can take a look here, you'll see them right here. And that's how you line that up perfectly, and then you can snap it back into place. Now you'll want to work on putting your 4 screws back into place down here around the home button. Now you'll want to go ahead and put the screws back in around the frame. After you've replaced those screws, we can work on reassembling the proximity sensor, the earpiece, the front facing camera up here at the top. You shouldn't have too much problems with snapping this back into place here. And once you do, you'll want to grab your earpiece, line it back up, and then of course pull your camera over top of it. We're going to go ahead and screw the earpiece in with the 2 screws that hold it into place here. Once we have that accomplished, we will take the frame and put it over top of our earpiece and front facing camera, and then go ahead and screw that back in. And now we will take the new screen with the ribbon cables and snap them into place. You should be able to fill it at the top, firmly snap into place up here. When you get that, you can work your way down to the bottom and put the other two ribbon cables in. Take your time lining these last two ribbon cables up. They can be a little stingy, and you really don't want to get this far and make a mistake now. So just take your time, line everything up, and of course the last thing we need to do, we need to go ahead and reattach the battery before we check to make sure everything is working. I'm going to go ahead and turn the iPhone on. I want to make sure the screen works. Now that all things seem to be working properly, we want to go ahead and add the last screws back that we need, both at the top and there at the battery connector. Go ahead and close the iPhone up and make sure it's fits snug there. And don't forget that we have two pentalobe screws down here at the bottom. We'll go ahead and add those, and then this repair will be done. If this video helped you, please leave me a thumbs up, like it, and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much.